When the cross met the crescent is often imagined as a sudden, dramatic clash between two civilizations, but in reality, the encounter between Christianity and Islam unfolded slowly, layer by layer, across centuries of contact, conflict, trade, and shared space. It did not begin with one single battle or moment. It began in a world already filled with tension, shaped by empires, beliefs, and people trying to understand their place within shifting systems of power. When these two religious worlds first met, they did so not as strangers, but as neighbors who had already been influencing one another long before open confrontation defined their relationship. In the early 7th century, the Eastern Mediterranean and Middle East were dominated by the Byzantine Empire, a Christian state that saw itself as the continuation of Rome. Its cities, Antioch, Jerusalem, Alexandria, were centers of faith, learning, and administration. Churches stood as symbols of spiritual authority, and the emperor was seen not just as a political leader, but as a protector of the Christian order. Yet beneath this structure, there were divisions. Different Christian communities disagreed over theology, identity, and authority. These disagreements were not small. They shaped how communities related to each other and to the state. In some regions, local populations felt disconnected from imperial power, even though they shared the same religion in a broad sense. At the same time, in the Arabian Peninsula, a new movement was emerging. The message of Islam, preached by the Prophet Muhammad, introduced a form of monotheism that connected itself to earlier traditions while also redefining them. The Quran spoke of figures known to Christians and Jews, Abraham, Moses, and Jesus, but presented them within a framework that emphasized the unity of God and the finality of revelation. When Islam began to expand beyond Arabia after the death of Muhammad, it entered territories where Christianity was already deeply rooted. This was not the arrival of a completely foreign idea, but the introduction of a competing interpretation of shared spiritual history. The first encounters between Christian and Muslim forces came through military expansion. As Muslim armies moved into Byzantine territories in Syria and Palestine, they met organized resistance. Battles like Yarmouk were decisive, not just because of their military outcomes, but because of what they represented: a shift in control over lands that had been part of the Christian world for centuries. When cities like Damascus and Jerusalem came under Muslim rule, the encounter between the cross and the crescent became a lived reality for the people who inhabited those places. What followed was not immediate destruction or forced conversion on a large scale, as is sometimes imagined. Instead, a new system of governance took shape. Christian communities were allowed to continue practicing their faith, maintaining churches and traditions, but under a new political authority. They became part of a structured society where Muslims held the highest political power, while Christians and Jews were recognized as protected communities with certain rights and responsibilities. This arrangement created a complex relationship. There was coexistence, but also hierarchy. There was interaction, but also difference. Jerusalem became one of the most symbolic places where these two worlds intersected. For Christians, it was the city of Jesus' crucifixion and resurrection. For Muslims, it became significant as the site associated with the Prophet's night journey and as a center of early Islamic architecture, including the Dome of the Rock. Within the same city, sacred spaces belonging to different traditions stood within walking distance of each other. This physical closeness reflected a deeper reality. These religions were not separated by vast distances, but intertwined within the same geographical and cultural space. As centuries passed, the relationship between Christian and Muslim worlds evolved. There were periods of relative stability where trade and intellectual exchange flourished. Merchants moved goods across regions, scholars translated texts, and ideas traveled alongside commerce. The Islamic world became a center of learning, preserving and expanding upon knowledge from Greek, Persian, and earlier traditions. Christian scholars, particularly in regions like Spain and Sicily, interacted with this intellectual environment, leading to exchanges that would later influence European thought.
But alongside cooperation, there were also moments of intense conflict. The Crusades, beginning in the late 11th century, marked one of the most dramatic phases of confrontation. European Christian armies, motivated by a mixture of religious devotion, political ambition, and economic opportunity, launched campaigns to capture Jerusalem and other territories under Muslim control. The arrival of Crusader forces transformed the nature of the encounter. It was no longer just about shifting political authority. It became framed as a struggle for sacred space and spiritual dominance. The capture of Jerusalem by Crusader forces in 1099 was accompanied by violence that left a deep mark on both sides. For Muslims, it was a traumatic event that symbolized foreign invasion and loss. For Christians in Europe, it was seen as a victory with religious significance. Yet even during the Crusades, the reality on the ground was more complex than simple opposition. There were periods of negotiation, alliances, and even cooperation between different groups. Local Christians living in the region often found themselves navigating between powers, adapting to whichever authority controlled their city at a given time. The Muslim response to the Crusades eventually led to the rise of leaders like Saladin, who recaptured Jerusalem in 1187. His approach to the city, often described as more restrained compared to earlier conquests, became part of the narrative that shaped how these encounters were remembered. The back-and-forth nature of the Crusades revealed something important. Neither side could fully eliminate the other's presence. The Cross and the Crescent were not passing forces, they were enduring realities that would continue to shape the region. Beyond warfare, everyday life in regions where Christians and Muslims lived together tells a quieter but equally important story. Markets, neighborhoods, and trade routes brought people into constant contact. Languages were shared, customs influenced one another, and cultural practices evolved through interaction. In some places, Christians adopted aspects of Arabic language and culture, while Muslims engaged with traditions inherited from earlier Christian societies. This blending did not erase differences, but it created a layered identity in which coexistence became part of daily life. The encounter between Christianity and Islam also unfolded intellectually. Scholars from both traditions engaged with each other's ideas, sometimes in debate, sometimes in translation and study. Questions about theology, philosophy, and law were explored in ways that reflected both agreement and disagreement. These exchanges contributed to the development of thought within both worlds. The transmission of knowledge from the Islamic world to Europe, particularly during the medieval period, played a role in shaping the intellectual movements that would later emerge in the West. Over time, the balance of power shifted again. The rise of the Ottoman Empire brought a new phase in the relationship. Constantinople, the heart of Eastern Christianity, fell to Ottoman forces in 1453, marking a major turning point. The city became Istanbul, a center of Islamic power, while still retaining elements of its Christian past. This event symbolized both continuity and change. The Cross and the Crescent were no longer just meeting, they were reshaping the same spaces, building new identities on foundations that had existed for centuries. Looking back, the meeting of the Cross and the Crescent was never a single moment or a simple clash. It was a long, evolving process shaped by human experiences, fear, ambition, faith, curiosity, and the need to survive within changing systems. It included war, but also trade. It included conflict, but also coexistence. It included misunderstanding, but also moments of recognition. What makes this history significant is not just the events themselves, but the patterns they reveal. When different belief systems encounter each other, the outcome is rarely a one of complete separation or total domination. Instead, it is a mixture of influence, resistance, adaptation, and transformation. The story of when the cross met the crescent is not just about the past, it is about how civilizations interact, how identities are formed, and how shared spaces can hold both division and connection at the same time.